it up into my position. Give thanks and praises to all the ancestors and ancestors. Thank you. I just had to do that over again, man, because last year I had a mishap where I recorded all the information, and then with the click of the button, I lost it. You know, so I just wanted to make this a special occasion, especially with Dr. Umar, because he dropped some powerful information on us the first time he was here during the Dr. King weekend, you know, and we tied it into that, you know, because we recognize the ancestors. A matter of fact, this year's celebration is called the BAKULU, and we went over that yesterday, where BAKULU simply means spirit of the ancestors, you know. So that's the name of our celebration, you know. I'm not gonna waste too much time. Dr. Umar, I want you to go right into it, you know. I did my spill yesterday. Everybody know what's going on with the AU. So we just want to get you up here, brother. But before we do, we need the Queen to come up here and introduce you properly. And this is the Queen Mother of the AU, the Afrikan Urban Perspective.
Greetings, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. I want to start this evening before I introduce Dr. Brother Umar Abdullah Johnson to let you all know a little bit of background on how we've reached out as the Syracuse community to bring him here. We see a lot of things going on in this community, and we blame it on a lot of people. A lot of us get blamed for it. We get blamed as parents. Everything gets blamed except for the school system that's supposed to teach and enrich our children. We have teachers that fail to meet a certain grade, but a union keeps them employed, and they continue to fail our students. And it doesn't just end up that they start to fail in high school. The failing has started in elementary school. The behavior issues have been graduated to something that could have been preventable before. I want to bring your attention to the fact that we just had a report in this district that the school district is graduating less than half of the students beginning the school year as a senior. So 100 kids begin the school year, or 1,000 as seniors. At the end of the school year, only 45% are graduating, but the school district is still getting paid for the full cohort. So it doesn't matter if you start out with 1,000 kids and only 500 or 450 graduate, they still get paid for the 1,000. And this year was the first year that they said summer school is only eligible for seniors. So what's happening to that money that's allocated to the kids? They're keeping it. I noticed that principals, and if you're a principal in here, if you're a school teacher in here, if you're an administrator in here, I'm about to be hired. If it doesn't apply, let it fly. What that means, if you're not guilty of it, let it roll off your back. All right, we have programs in this community receiving millions of dollars, and we're sitting here watching classes graduate, watching programs take credit for things that they're clearly not doing with our students. I want you all to know that Skinny Atlas, how many of y'all familiar with the Skinny Atlas School District? Is the country leader, one of the country leaders with a 94% graduation rate. North Syracuse, 83% graduation rate. Oswego, 73%. Syracuse, 45.9. And this year, even less than that graduated. We're talking about children being passed that can't read. I know kindergartners that finish kindergarten are going into a first grade that can't read a sentence, can't write a sentence. And they're supposed to be ready and prepared for these type of things. I know by the time they get to 3rd and 4th grade, they're not doing well on a test that we call ELAs. So our schools become failing, and they close our schools in our neighborhoods, and we just sit back and watch. And we go to the principal, as he said last evening, we go to the principal, and the principal tells us, the buck stops here. I'm here to tell you today that what he said last night, principals lie. They fool you into thinking that they know the procedure that they're supposed to follow, and you find out a little bit later on that not only are they incapable of running the whole building, they're actually not familiar with their own policies. So again, as he said, if you put out a few names that make them a little uncomfortable, stuff will start popping. So always in this district, when you call the principal, CC somebody at the Board of Education, because that's what happened for me. Before I called the principal, I called Monique Wright-Williams. So today when the answer came back the wrong answer, she was like, no, we talked to you. So when things don't happen our way, we need to push the ticket. And one of the reasons why I say that is that we don't insist enough that people that look like you and me teach our kids. We don't insist it enough. What we do get is Johnny was bad today because he was sent to school full of Frosted Flakes, which have sugar in it, and instead of the teacher being able to disseminate that he was on a sugar high, she calls it a behavior problem, so Johnny immediately goes to the office, and he's been there enough that now he's in in-school suspension. Now he doesn't go to a regular setting because they've had him tested, and the parent doesn't know any different. And I'm not talking to y'all about this because he said it. I called it because we experienced it. So if I experienced it, all of y'all have in some way or another, or know a child that has, and we need to step up to the plate. So we brought a heavy hitter in. His name is Dr. Umar Johnson, nationally certified school psychologist who practices privately throughout Pennsylvania and lectures throughout the country. He was here in January, and apparently some of us got touched by it, but we didn't have a room as full as what we have today, so I thank you for coming out. So some of you that hear this message today, I'm going to challenge you to take this message to other people that you know, have them do some research and check it out, buy a video or two, so when you're asked about the brother, you can tell people what he does. Dr. Umar is a blood relative of Frederick Douglass, the great black abolitionist and orator. As a child therapist, he specializes in working with at-risk, violent, suicidal, and depressed black American boys and girls. For 5 years, he served as the youngest of 5 African-American male school psychologists in the 5th largest public school district in America, the School District of Philadelphia. I want you all to know this much. Philadelphia, just like us, has to say yes to education. I'm not sure they all saying yes either. Again, we called in our heavy hitter. Dr. Umar Johnson is a mover and a shaker in our community. We as black people, we as people with students need to understand those people that shine in our community and bring them out to speak to our people on a real level, not on a pretend level, but on a real level as it concerns us, as it concerns our mental well-being, and as it concerns our children. The children are in disarray and we're not asking the right questions. We have a brother here that can answer those questions that we've been so struggling with. Why is violence so high? Why is crime so high? Why do we always want to put our kids on medication? Without further ado, I'm going to bring him up here. If you all can stand up and give him a big black hand, I would appreciate it. Dr. Umar.
Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be with you again. Good to see the parents on out here. I want to dedicate the first half of my presentation tonight to the psycho-academic war against black children. I see a lot of parents here, so I definitely want to make sure that I cover the necessary terrain and give you some things to think about and some strategies that you can use to help protect your children and advocate for them in the public schools. As Sister Twiggy said, I'm a nationally certified school psychologist. I'm a black male nationally certified school psychologist. We're a rare breed. Less than 1% of all school psychologists in America are black, and less than 1/2% of all school psychologists are black males. So for the black men in the room, sisters too, but particularly for the black men in the room, if any of you are considering education as a career option, please get in contact with me because we need more black male school psychologists. We have to recognize that the school psychologist's job is to test. We are the test givers. We're the ones who evaluate and decide who goes into special education. We're the ones who diagnose mental retardation, learning disabilities, autism, emotional disturbance, deafness, blindness, orthopedic impairment, traumatic brain injury, other health impairment, and other such conditions. And we need more young black males. Okay, you can work for yourself without a doctorate degree. You can work for a district if you choose. You can work for a hospital. There's a lot of different settings in which you can find employment, although I would probably encourage you to be independent like myself. being an independent school psychologist is very, very critical. Why? Because when you work for school districts, it's difficult for you to tell the truth when you have a principal breathing down your neck who wants a certain conclusion. It's difficult to tell the truth when you have a classroom teacher breathing down your neck who wants a certain conclusion. It's difficult to tell the truth when you have a superintendent or director of special education who wants a certain conclusion, and they're breathing down your neck to give them that conclusion. So as a result of that, a lot of school psychologists are faced with a conflict of interest. Why? Because the State Department of Education invests us with the sole authority to determine who has learning disabilities. The problem is everyone else in the school thinks that they have a right to tell us what our conclusion should be. So for me being independent, I have been able to circumnavigate a lot of that nonsense and cut right to the chase. I used to be with the school district of Philadelphia. When I walked away from my job as school psychologist, all my colleagues thought I was crazy, especially the black ones. They said, "What are you doing? You're the youngest of only 5. You get excellent pay. You have excellent benefits. One day you'll probably be in charge of school psychological services." Okay, they failed to realize that being in charge of school psychological services for a district, okay, that's being controlled by outsiders was not something that was in my list of goals. Okay, so again, if that's something that you're interested in, please get in contact with me. Go to the National Association of School Psychologists website, nasponline.org. It is a white organization, but they have some excellent tutorials on careers in school psychology. Okay, yes, you get paid, it's good income, but that's not why I want you to do it. I want you to do it so you can prevent black children, boys in particular, from being put in special ed when they do not need it. Yes, we have black children who have disabilities. Yes, there's black kids who are retarded, learning disabled, emotionally disturbed, autistic. Yes, our children do have those problems, but guess what? 75% of the black kids in special ed don't have a disability. They are there because no one wants to put the time in necessary to improve their skill levels. As we talked about last night, the biggest diagnosis in public schools is ABT, ain't been the hell taught. That's the chief issue. Children are not being taught in kindergarten. They're not being taught in first grade. They're not being taught in second grade. And in third grade, when they start getting standardized testing, that's when we begin to realize that they've been miseducated since the first day they sat in there. I believe that the psychoacademic war against black children and boys in particular is the chief civil right and human rights issue on the planet right now. I know a lot of us are focused on what's going on in Libya, and my heart goes out to the Libyan people for the challenges that they are facing, and my heart goes out to any people, even if they're not African, for any type of burden, any unnecessary infringement upon their human rights is concerned. But how can we divert attention from the black community to the Libyan community when we got the greatest human rights issue taking place in our own community? How do we have time to take time out to go help other people? Our interests and our focus should be totally on what's going on in our community and with our children. And I say it all the time, and sometimes folks don't listen to me well enough, but understand this, black people. It's critical that you accept the fact that when people evaluate how much respect a race has for itself, they look at how they treat their children and how they allow others to treat their children. No self-respecting group of people would tolerate the type of abuse, academic abuse, scholastic neglect that we tolerate from the thousands of school districts across this country who consistently miseducate black children. I think it is absolutely criminal for a public school teacher to be allowed to teach a given population that they absolutely do not care about. How do you teach a child you have no concern for? How do you teach a child that you have no compassion for? How do you teach a child to master mathematics if you think it's impossible for him to be a doctor? How do you teach him reading comprehension if you think it's impossible for him to be an attorney? How do you teach him science if you think it's impossible for him to be an astronomer? We fail to realize that when teachers show up for work, they bring that racial baggage into the job with them. It does not stay out in the car. Am I saying that every white teacher is biased against black children? I'm not saying that. But I am saying that the critical mass of them certainly are. And I'm also saying that the critical mass of black teachers as well are biased against black children. I see black teachers miseducate and emasculate our boys, okay, in public schools every day. Couple things we got to recognize. A few of us fail to realize that you do not have absolute control over your child. A lot of us think that when a child is born that we have the legal right to raise them as we want. That is not true. You can't find no law in this country that gives a parent the right to raise their child absolutely. The state owns the children. And that's why the state decides what they learn. That's why the state takes the child out of your house whenever they disagree with how you're raising them. Some of us fail to look at child protective services, okay, through the back door. We tend to look at it through the front door. In other words, if a child is being abused or neglected, they come in and take the child. But guess what? They'll also take that child if you're not raising them the way the state wants you to raise them. Okay? If you're not giving them psychotropic medicine, they will take your children. It's called medical neglect. There's cases every day popping up. When I first said this about 5 years ago, people thought I was crazy. They said, what do you mean they're going to take my child because I don't want to give them any Ritalin? What do you mean they're going to take my daughter because I don't want to give her any Prozac? What do you mean they're going to take my grandbabies from me because I don't want to give them any Cycler, no Adderall? Okay? But guess what? It's happening, people, every day. Parents are losing their black children because they don't want to give them dangerous mind-altering medications. People often ask me, why is there such an increase of black children being processed through the juvenile justice or injustice center? The reason why we see so many black preteens and teenagers being sent into juvenile placements while white kids are sent back home for rehabilitation is because when you go back to the 1980s, there was a federal study called the Federal Anti-Violence Initiative. I don't know if I spoke on this last time I was here, but the United States government put millions of dollars into research to prove that black children were somehow not as human as white children. And because they were not as human as white children, if you want to control the behavior of black children, you have to give them medication because they're not able to do it themselves. They said that there was a gene that made black men violent. They say black men were predisposed to kill one another because of a gene. This is eugenics. This is eugenics. They say they kill each other because that's the way nature made them. They are stuck. They're half monkey and half man. Not quite all animal and not quite white man, but they're stuck in the middle. And so because of that, white folks started believing that black teenagers could not be rehabilitated. So if a black teen is genetically predisposed to commit violence, what's the use of trying to help them out? You might as well just send them on to adult prison. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. All of this is based on eugenics. The belief that if a black child goes the wrong way, they cannot be put back on the right road. So states and the federal government are no longer spending money to help black children. They simply want to incarcerate. As you guys know, when I talk about the psychoacademic war against black boys, I'm talking about 5 stages. There's 5 stages that every black child born in America are expected to go through. It takes it from birth until death. From birth until death. And most of the time that death will take place before the age of 40. First you have miseducation. What are the 3 goals of miseducation? Number 1, to teach the black child to love white people and white culture. To teach the black child to hate African culture and African people. And if possible, to effeminize or homosexualize the black male child. Important that we understand that. I'm going to give it to you again. The 3 primary goals of public education is to teach the black child to love white culture, to hate African culture and people, and if possible, to effeminize or homosexualize that child, male or female, but particularly the male. The second stage is what? Psychotropic medication. Understand something about psychotropic medication. Psychotropic medication is being used as a strategy of social control. The reason why the children are being put on the medicine is because the medicine is being used to do what? Kill the passion and the revolutionary energy of the child. That's what drugs do. They pacify. So they give them the Ritalin and the Cycler and the Adderall to do what? Kill the revolutionary black male spirit. That's the purpose of psychiatry in this movement. And it cannot be overstated. Okay? When you study Nazi Germany, Hitler made extensive use of psychiatrists. Okay? To do what? Come up with imaginary labels and then do what? Conduct all types of psychological experiments and use medicine to do what? Dissipate the energy, to docilate the child. When we look at violence in the black community, many of us are quick to blame young black males for the violence that they commit. We have to recognize that young black males are not responsible for the violence that they commit totally. Are they responsible? Yes, they are. But when you see a violent act, understand that evolved over a period of time. First of all, there is racism. Number one, racism leads to a lack of opportunities and access to resources. Let me say that again. Systematic racism leads to a lack of opportunities and access to resources, which leads to what? Hopelessness, which leads to what? Desperation, which leads to what? Violence. You don't get violence without anger. You don't get anger without hopelessness and desperation. Criminals are not born, criminals are made. Everybody sitting in this audience right now will become a criminal tomorrow if somebody cut off your ability to make something of yourself through normal legal means. I don't know why we fail to realize this when we look at our young people. One of the biggest problems that we have in our community, and one of the biggest reasons why we don't have the respect of our sons, is because we are not teaching them about the society in which they're expected to survive. Black boys are not learning from the church or the mosque or the community center or their own parents that they are public enemy number one in this country. Nobody's teaching them that. And the reason why we don't teach them that is because we think that teaching them that is going to make them hate white people. No, I'm going to tell you what's going to make them hate white people. What's going to make them hate white people is finding out firsthand from white people and not their own community that they don't get second chances in this society. We have to be honest with our young men. Stop telling them that all you have to do is go to school and do your best and everything's going to be all right. That's the biggest damn lie in this country. That is not truth. Okay? And one of the things that I do is whenever I talk to young black males, I'm very honest with them. Okay? I don't believe in the whole angry black male syndrome. Okay? I don't believe in black men using emotion to deal with problems because you cannot fight white supremacy with emotions. And all of us know that. You got to have discipline. You have to be able to subvert the emotion to a logical thought process in order to solve your problems. No war has ever been won by an emotional general, and this war will not be won by emotional black males. We have to teach them discipline. We have to teach them how to transmute that emotional energy into intellectual energy so that we can do something about our problems. But having said that, it also bothers me on the other hand when I hear people say, that we don't understand why black men are at times so angry. If you're a black man in America and you're not angry sometimes, then something's wrong with you, okay? Because what that means is what? You have been totally desensitized to your own oppression. Totally desensitized to your own oppression. When I go to different conferences and panels and workshops, I sit with a lot of educated bourgeoisie black men. And they sit up there and they talk about other black men as if they're not one. But we don't understand why they can't work, or we don't understand why they're selling drugs, and we don't understand why they can't graduate from high school. One of the biggest reasons why our boys drop out is because many of them are not willing to face emasculation of their manhood. You have to recognize something. If you are an alpha male, if you are born to be a leader as a black boy, it is difficult for you to exist in a public school district. Most of the black boys who drop out are of the leadership class. The ones who are hanging out on the corners are your best minds. The problem is we fail to realize that. The reason why they're the first ones to walk out of school is because they have not lost their native intelligence and common sense. And no one's going to force them to put themselves through a process that they know is not in their best interest. The brothers on the corners are the ones that we need to be working with. They're the ones. Understand this. A black child who is creative, a black child who is philosophical, a black child who is born with leadership skills, a black child who is a deep thinker has a difficult time making it through public school. In fact, oftentimes when students are sent to me for so-called ADHD issues, the first question I ask is this child a deep thinker? So the psychiatrists or the other psychologists, they look and they say, why is Mr. Johnson asking whether or not this kid is a deep thinker? What does being a deep thinker or a philosophical child has to do with ADHD? Because deep thinkers are quick to zone out of instruction that is not relevant. Did you hear what I just said? If your child is philosophical, which means that they have a mind that looks for connections below the surface, they are quick to zone out and daydream. They're actually teaching themselves through deep thought because the teacher can't do it. Please recognize that. The problem is we're trying to make the child We're trying to make the child fit the school, and we're not trying to make the school fit the child. Every conversation that takes place in school is about what? Getting the child to fit the school. Why isn't the school fitting the child? And for those of you who got young princesses, okay, be careful to make sure that they're not being pushed through school without learning information, because what I'm finding is that the psychoacademic war against black girls, which is not as powerful as the war against black boys, okay, but it's catching up. I'm coming across a whole lot of young, pretty little African sisters who don't know a damn thing and are simply being passed to the next grade because they're cute and quiet. Did you hear what I said? Make sure that they are being taught. Quiz them yourself. You cannot rely on report card grades to judge how well your child is doing. I'm going to say it again. You cannot rely on report card grades to judge how well your child is doing. So you're probably saying, if the child is getting A's and B's, why can I rely on that as being indicative of my child's academic progress? Because grades are not objective measures of achievement. They are subjective. A report card grade is an interaction between achievement and teacher's perception and relationship with your child. If I have a good relationship with my teacher, even if I'm not on grade level, I might come home with an A or a B. Furthermore, in order for the teacher to keep their job, they have to make it look like most of the kids in the classroom are learning. Do you know what that means? 10 kids who should have got F's got A's because they have to justify keeping their position. Very important that you recognize this, which means that once a year or once every other year, you need to hire yourself a school psychologist, or you can get a public school teacher to conduct an independent academic assessment on your child to make sure the report card grades are representative of what your child can do and not how well the teacher likes the child. Very important that you recognize that. On the flip side, I'm seeing boys coming to homes with F's who are above grade level because the teacher is grading them based on behavior. Listen to me well. It is illegal. It is illegal in the United States of America to fail a child for behavior. Did everybody hear me? Did everybody hear me? Now, some of you are probably saying, well, wait a minute, I know a couple kids who failed just because they didn't know how to act. Or are you telling me that's illegal? Yes, I am. And if you have a child who was made to repeat a grade or fail a class because of behavior, although they did their work and have the ability, then we need to send a letter to the superintendent of public schools to get that grade changed. You cannot fail a child based on behavior. Okay? Teachers are doing it because they don't know the law, but more importantly, they know that you don't know the law. Now, one of the things we got to recognize about the American social order is this. Most of us know that we have a local school board. You got the Syracuse School Board, Philadelphia School Board, Los Angeles School Board. But what a lot of us don't know is that in 1903, the Rockefellers created a board of education. Why would an economic family create a board of education? They created a board of education in 1903 to dictate curriculum to the public schools through their influence and money. The public school's job is to do what? Create one dumb mind amongst black people. They want them all to think the same way. They want them all to have the same desires. They want them all to have the same future. For example, if you're a black boy in public school, you basically wait to get drafted in 3 places. Get drafted by the military, get drafted by prison, or get drafted by the NBA. That's the sum total of an educational career for most black males. Now, unfortunately, few black males make it through past that point. Especially the alpha males. The type A masculine black boy is a public school's worst enemy. They can't stand him. The last thing a white teacher wants to see is a black boy who's proud to be black and ain't gonna let nobody tell them otherwise. They can't stand him. On the flip side of that is the effeminate black boy who agrees with everything that the American social order has to teach. Now here's the thing. In some countries, your children have to go to public school. In the United States of America, your children don't have to go to public school, which means that we have to begin to look seriously about creating schools for them ourselves. Now understand this. Kindergarten through 12th grade, kindergarten through 3rd grade, what is the goal of public school? From kindergarten through 3rd grade, the goal of public school is to teach black children to love America and to be loyal to it. Did y'all hear what I said? Okay? By the end of the 3rd grade, a black child is supposed to be loyal to America and to love America. That's why if you notice, they taught the Star-Spangled Banner, the Pledge of Allegiance, and all the songs from K-3. Okay, that's the condition. That's the condition. Okay? That's K to 3. From 4th to 6th, they're taught values. They're taught to do what? Worship materialism, to question the Creator, not to listen to your parents. That's 4th grade through 6th grade. Okay? 7th grade through 9th grade, that's when they kill the child's natural drive for learning. Okay? Middle school is the period where the child's critical analysis skills are destroyed. They don't teach children to question. They teach them to accept. In middle schools, the job of middle school education is to destroy the child's natural inquisitiveness. Are y'all with me? To kill the child's natural inquisitiveness. That's why those of you who got middle school children, of all ages, but particularly the middle school children, you have to make sure you work with them to make sure they keep their common damn sense. Because by the end of 9th grade, most black kids have totally lost their common sense and they simply become robots in the American social order. 10th through 12th, to make them a social conformist. In 10th through 12th grade, that's when they start getting them ready for life in the American social order. Okay, they choose a few to go to college, the rest of them go to trade school. Let me say this about trade school. In the 1970s, there was a shift in black inner city public schools. Public schools in the black community originally were based on blue-collar professions. Electricians, plumbers, barbers, carpenters. In the 70s and 80s, a shift was made to focus on what? White-collar professions. Now, the black community thought that was a good idea, right? Because they said, why white folks just want us to be in the blue-collar trades? Why we got to use our hands? We can't use our minds. So when they switched to white-collar professions, we thought that was a good thing. It was actually one of the worst things that could happen. Why? Because the public schools were stripped of the trade programs. Most of your high schools in Syracuse do not teach young men how to fix cars anymore. They don't teach them to be plumbers. They don't teach them to be carpenters. They don't teach them any of the trades. You want to know why? That's so the white construction companies and white labor unions can dictate who works on the projects that are built in New York. That's why when you look at a lot of them, you see nothing but white laborers there. There's almost no black labor. And the reason why there's no black labor is because the labor education programs were stripped from the high schools. If one of these children want to be an electrician or a plumber or a carpenter, they should be able to be an electrician or a plumber or a carpenter. Everybody should not be going to college because the only thing a black child is guaranteed to get in college is more miseducation and a lot of financial debt. A lot of financial debt. And you cannot declare bankruptcy on student loans. And some of us black parents are trying to live our lives again through our black children by making them go to college when they tell you they don't want to be there. Why would you do that? Now they owe $60,000 and still ain't got a diploma. See that? They come back home minus 60 grand because you felt that it looks better for you for your child to have a college degree. Do you know that America has a surplus of black people with degrees who can't find work? Do you know that black people are being told that they are overqualified for jobs and they are homeless and on public assistance with master's degrees? Why is that? Because the job of college is prepare you to fit in the American social order. The average the average education you get at a university prepares you for a job that 9 times out of 10 you can only be hired for by a white person. But if you know how to work with your hands, you can work for yourself. See? You can still eat. If I'm an electrician, I can still eat by using my skills in my community. If I'm a plumber, I can still eat by using the skills in my community. But if I'm an accountant, and I can't find work with none of the accounting firms, guess what? I'm not going to be able to eat. If I'm a psychologist, and I can't find work with a psychology firm, or somebody who needs a psychologist, I'm not going to be able to eat. So one of the biggest things I got to fight for in Syracuse is for the trade programs to be put back in the black public schools. Fight for the trade programs to be put back in the black public schools. And for my mothers in the room, do not sensitize your daughters against being in professions that have been stereotypically masculine. Too many girls are being steered away from the blue-collar professions, and I think it's to their detriment. Women electricians make just as much money as men electricians. Women who work on cars, they probably make more money than brothers who work on cars, because all the brothers want to see them working on their car. Okay? So for the young sisters, give them the best of both worlds. In fact, whenever I'm blessed with the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Pan-African School for black boys, and then ultimately another one for girls. I want every student in my school to have what? A trade and a scholarship. You're going to be a plumber and a psychologist, not just a psychologist. You're going to be a carpenter and a medical doctor, not just a medical doctor. See that? You're going to be a brick mason and an engineer. Why? Why do I got to learn how to work with my hands if I got this doctorate? Because if they fire you, how are you going to be able to feed your family? See, every black person walking around with a doctorate degree is living off the good wishes of white folk. Because the minute they decide we don't need no more of you, how you want to feed your family? And that's the issue that we got. So we got to make sure that they get the W.E.B. Du Bois Scholarship and the Booker T. Washington Tree. Very important that we do that. Another thing, for those of us in the black community who are looking for employment, we have to go back to using our hands in order to get paid. For example, catering is still a booming business, okay? Also, house cleaning is still a booming business. I know somebody who's a millionaire off cleaning offices and homes. Sometimes we cut our own self off of income because we think something is beneath me. I don't want to clean toilets, and I don't want to clean urinals. So guess what? There's no black people cleaning toilets and cleaning urinals. So guess who's getting the contract for Syracuse public schools to clean every urinal in the whole damn public schools? And they making millions. That's right. No, teach your child to look and teach yourself to look for employment in professions that nobody else want to be involved with. That's why so much opportunity in school psychology. Every time I speak to undergraduates in college and try to influence them to get into school psychology, you know what they say? I don't want to spend all day testing. That's boring. I said, but it's good money, good job security, good income. It's too boring. Which means what? Black people suffer from discipline more than any other issue. Do you know that? We do not have the ability to make ourselves do what needs to be done when it has to be done, whether we like it or not. That's our big problem. We can't do it. If we don't like it, we don't do it. And as a result of that, we're falling behind other people in this race for life. Very important that we recognize this. But the Rockefeller General Education Board, General Board of Education in 1903, began to do what? Influence the development of public school curriculum to produce the type of ignorant graduate that can feed the American social order and the global new world order system. So if we want our children to be thinkers, and if we want our children to be innovators, we have to do what? Put back in them the critical analysis and deep thought that is so very important to any society that has to create a new future for themselves. Black children are not going to be able to fix black problems with a white mindset. Black children are not going to be able to fix black problems with a white mindset, and we fail to realize that. One of the biggest things I dislike about public school in America for any child, but we're focusing on our own, is it kills the natural intellectual curiosity of the child. Remember, 85% of everything invented in America, okay, up until 1900, was invented out of the mind of a black person who was not allowed to go to school with white kids. I'm going to say that again. 85% of everything invented in America up until 1900 was invented by a black person who was not allowed to go to school with white children. It wasn't that they weren't around the white children that allowed them to be creative. It was that they were not subject to the dumbing down model of public education. It is not conducive for educating children. We have a sit still and listen model of education, and we wonder why everybody on pills. Could you imagine sitting still for 8 hours, listening to some boring woman at the front of the class tell you something that ain't going to matter 1 second about what life is going to be like for you when you get out into the room? And then after you have psychiatric medicine, then you get what? Incarceration, locking our black boys up. And many of them are being adjudicated as adults. In fact, in New York State, if I'm not mistaken, if you're at least 16 years old, you are automatically an adult in New York. Am I correct? Yes, sir. They have one of the harshest laws. If you're 16, automatically you're tried as an adult in this state. Okay? In Pennsylvania, it's catching up. In fact, many of y'all don't know this, but most federal prisons in America are created in the north, are situated in the northeast section of the United States of America. Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts has the biggest conglomerate of federal prisons. That's on purpose. okay, to lock up the men in this section of the country, because ever since the Black Power movement and the civil rights, the Black Power movement, after the civil rights movement, there's always been a concerted effort by the federal authorities to keep the black man in the northeast section of the country dumb and docile. Okay, the revolutionary focus went from the south to the north during the Black Power movement. And as a result of that, there's a lot of interest in locking up black men in this section of the country to make sure that you don't fuel any type of revolution. And for those of y'all who don't know, at the end of the 60s, there was a law that was put in place, okay, that gave the police and the military the ability to actually suspend the Constitution in black communities in case of a riot. So if anything ever kicked off in our community, you have no rights. The military begins to run the black community. Okay, so I'm saying we have to be very political and strategic as we prepare for what we're going to be doing. But I want to be very clear about something, okay? And I know black people don't like hearing this, but I got to tell you anyway. You really don't have a future in this country. And you're going to have to start thinking seriously about repatriation. I know we don't like to hear it. I know we've been taught to hate Africa. But I'm telling you right now, in the next 100 years, okay, it's going to be hell to pay for black people, especially once President Obama is no longer in office. Not because he's doing anything for us in office, but there's going to be a backlash against black people that you haven't seen since the 60s once he's been removed. And it's our fault. And why is it our fault? Because we've been running around smiling at white people like we won something, just because the president's half black. And as a result of that, they can't wait to get you back. So you're going to see unemployment rise when he's out of office. You're going to see prison rates rise when he's out of office. You're going to see police brutality rise when he's out of office. So please get ready for the backlash, because it's going to come. And I don't want to be the bringer of bad news, but it's going to come. Okay? We have a bad habit in our community of celebrating gains that we have not won. At the end of slavery, we celebrated, but we were still enslaved. During Reconstruction, we celebrated, but guess what? We really hadn't reconstructed anything. When the Brown versus Board of Education decision was handed down in 1954, we celebrated, but there was no progress. When President Obama got elected, we celebrated, but for what reason? You absolutely gained nothing. In fact, you're worse off now than when he first got elected, because all white people know that he's not going to say anything on behalf of black people. So these are the questions you got to ask yourself, okay? We have to begin to have study groups. Study groups are very important. I don't know if any of y'all host a study group here. Well, yes, of course you do. Brother Ross does. It's very important. Why are study groups key? Because through study groups you can do what? Induce collective vision, induce collective value. We got to have that. Black people are too separated from one another ideologically. Okay, we have to do what? Find the common denominator amongst all of us. Whether you're Moor or African or Muslim or Christian, whatever your faith is, whatever the political ideology is, we have a common denominator, and that's that we are all from the same place. Okay, I know we can't agree on that place. Some of us are from beneath the ocean. Heard a brother tell me he was from the moon last month. Another brother was from Jupiter. He astro projected here 2,000 years ago. You know, I don't even get into that because it's really getting ridiculous. Okay? Okay? But we have a shared history and a shared lineage, and we have to use that, you know, in order to get to where we need to be. Please keep documentation for my parents. You got to keep documentation. You got to write down everything. Write down the conversations. Write down the suspensions. Especially if you got a black boy, you better be keeping a record of the suspensions. Some of you were saying, can I get the suspensions from the school? Can I get the secretary to print out? Sure, you can get the school secretary to print out a list of suspensions. But the problem is what? They don't record all the suspensions for black kids. Why don't they keep a record of all the suspensions for black boys? Because they know once they suspend them more than 10 times, it becomes a civil rights issue. Did y'all hear what I just said? So when you finally get a printout of your son's suspensions, it's only 6. You like, this boy been suspended 16 times. And I got a paper from the secretary saying he only got 6 days. And you saying, where the other days at? They said, well, that's all we remember. Like, hell no, I've been up here 10 times. Okay? The problem is you didn't keep documentation. The reason why they don't keep the documentation is because if they suspend your child more than 10 days, you now have reason to argue, complain, okay, to even sue that your child is being systematically kept from getting a public education. Your child cannot be kept from getting a public education. Even when a child is expelled from school, what does the school district do? Put them in an alternative setting. You still gotta educate. There's no such thing as not educating a child. I'm hearing about kids who've been home for 2 months. They told me to take him home and My son been home for 60 days, 30 days, 20 days. Do you know what that is? That's an expulsion without due process. You cannot expel a child in the United States of America until their parents have had an opportunity to plead their case in front of the local school board of education. That's the only place. Principals can't expel children. Teachers can't expel children. So when they tell you to take your child home and your child is home for 15 days, soon they were home past 10, it was a what? Illegal expulsion. Remember that. Anything after 10 is an expulsion. And if your child been home after 10 days and you did not get your due process, then they expelled your child without a hearing. They can't do it. It's illegal. Now, parents also ask me about what? Their children being searched in school. Can they search your child's book bag? Can they search your child's locker? Right? A cop has to have what? Probable cause. Does the school have to have probable cause before they search your child's belongings? What do you think?
Nope. Yes, but
No. Remember, schools are like independent nations. What goes on in the street does not go on in the school. What does the school need? They don't need probable cause. They need a what? Reasonable suspicion. Schools need a reasonable suspicion. The standard is a lot lower. He smelled like marijuana, so I told him to open his locker and I searched him. Did you have probable cause? No, I didn't need probable cause. All I needed was a reasonable suspicion. That's right. Okay? Can they strip search your child? If they got a reasonable suspicion, they can. Can they strip search your daughter? If they got a reasonable suspicion, they can. That's the law. Okay? Zero tolerance policies are killing black children. Y'all know what zero tolerance is? If you have anything on you that remotely looks like a weapon, we can expel you from school. It is one of the worst forms of institutional racism in the 21st century. I got kids who are being suspended because they came with a Boy Scout knife on the tip of their keychain that they take to the Boy Scouts. Never been in a fight their whole life. And now they expelled from the school district. Teachers love zero tolerance because it's the quickest way to get black kids out of school. Even if they special ed, if they got a weapon, or they make a violent threat, or do serious bodily injury, even special ed kids can be sent to a 45-day interim placement. That's right, you can remove a special ed kid for 45 days. You can't do it permanently until the IEP team comes together to do what? Determine whether or not the disciplinary infraction was a manifestation of the child's behavior. Listen to what I'm saying. If that little girl is diagnosed with a learning disability in reading, which I'm sure her mother would never tolerate, okay? If she throws that chair and hits me in the head, she can be removed from the school for 45 days because the chair she threw constitutes a weapon, okay? But because she's special ed, she got to come back after 45 days unless the IEP team meets and decides that her throwing that chair had nothing to do with her disability. Now, if she got a reading disability, does throwing the chair have anything to do with your ability not to read? No, but if she exhibits behavior problems and the school did nothing about those behavior problems, even though she got a reading disability, you cannot remove her from the school. Why? Because she had behavior issues that you did not attend to. Did y'all hear what I said? So if you got a child who's in special education, I don't care what the disability is, if they try to expel them or remove them on a disciplinary transfer, if your child has had behavior problems all along, my first question to you, is there a behavior plan stapled to his IEP? Is there a behavior plan stapled to the IEP? And if there's no behavior plan stapled to the IEP, they can't move your child. Now you're probably saying, well, I know because they moved my nephew. Of course, because they know you don't know the law. Parental ignorance is being used against us. Now I want to come up here. I got to lose some weight. My knees is losing. Ross, we got a pen? Let me get the pen right now. What I want to do, and then I want to get into this. Post-traumatic slavery disorder, the poltergeist and the white Jesus image. We're not dealing with Christianity. I want to be clear about that. Because some of y'all probably said, wait a minute, do I got to get up and leave? You're talking about Christ. No, I'm not talking about Christ. Okay? Jesus Christ, the black Christ, is actually a hero of mine. He's tattooed on my left shoulder. And according to the Urantia Christians, he was actually born on August 21st. Same day as the Nat Turner insurrection, same day as the George Jackson prison escape, and the same day that I was born. So I get a lot of inspiration from Jesus Christ, who was a fellow Leo. I know y'all said, well, wait a minute, wasn't he born December 25th? Of course he wasn't. The date for Christmas was changed 3 times in the Western world. The reason why it was put December 25th because it worked best that way for tax purposes and businesses. Okay, up until the Nicene Council in 325, everybody knew that Jesus Christ was born in a cave in Ethiopia. In fact, there's pagans in Ethiopia that have Jesus with his mother. Now, child has a problem. When your child has a problem in school, right? A learning problem or a behavior problem, the school got 2 paths that they can travel. Path number 1, path number 2. Path number 2 is special education. Path number 1 is intervention. And I want y'all parents to pay close attention to this. Now in Syracuse, which path do they tend to take as soon as a child presents with a behavior or academic problem? Special ed. Why? Because special ed leads to special money. Everybody with me? Every time I throw one of them kids in special ed, 7 to 10 grand. Right? Extra. There ain't no extra money for the interventions. But according to state and federal law, when your child has an academic or behavior problem, the school is required to do what? Implement research-based. Did y'all know this? Did y'all know that when your child is struggling in school, academically or behaviorally, when they try to help your child, they're supposed to be using strategies that the professional research says is effective? Did you know that? If your child can't read and they try to get you to sign a permission to evaluate so he can go to special education, and you say, no, I want academic interventions, and I know that every public school in America is required to try to help kids through interventions before they consider special ed, that the interventions gotta be research-based. So this is what I want you to do the next time they call you about your child having a problem. This is what I want you to say. I would like to have a meeting with the school's academic or behavior intervention team, because I would like to see what research-based interventions you're going to use to deal with my son's emotional problem. I would like to see what research-based interventions you're going to use to deal with my daughter's reading problem. I want to see what research-based interventions you're going to use to deal with my granddaughter's writing problem. Is everybody with me? This is the law. They're supposed to be using research-based strategies. That's the law. Are they doing it? No, because you're not making it. Now, when you do an intervention, there's normally 3 stages in the intervention process. 3 stages. First, there's interventions on the classroom level, CR classroom. The principal works with the teacher to try to help the teacher reach the child. How long should intervention 1 take? Approximately 45 days. Right? School days. Let's say the child still ain't reading. Then, level 2 intervention, we was on the classroom level. Now we're going to go on the grade level, and we're going to ask other teachers in 3rd grade and other teachers in 4th grade, do you have any ideas we can use to reach that child? So now it's a grade level meeting. That's another 45 days. But they still can't read or they still acting up. The 3rd intervention is going to be what? School-wide. We're going to ask teachers from other schools, teachers from this schools, to see if they can help us come up with some research-based interventions to help that child read, write, speak, learn, do math, or behave. That's another 45 days. What's 45 times 3? I ain't got to get out my test kit. 135. 135? I ain't got a test no more. I do got my adult test in the trunk. I gotta get it out. Right. So that's 135 days. School days. School days. Now let me ask y'all a question. You have to go to school for what?
180. Or 175. Something.
180, right? You're correct. So that 135 from 180 leaves what?
Repeating a grade.
45 days.
That means 45? Do you know what that means?
You repeat the grade. And
If the school calls you in September saying your child is struggling, and you tell them that you want your child to go through an academic intervention process,
It's going to take them all year.
it's going to take them all year. Y'all see that? Do y'all see that? It's going to take them all year. So how is it that the teacher calls you on Monday and said he ain't learning, and you told the teacher, I want you to do an academic intervention plan, and she called you on Friday and say he ain't responding, and then you scratching your head like a Negro saying, okay, I'll sign for the special ed. First of all, don't no child make no changes in 5 days. Don't no child make no changes in 20 days. At the very least, listen to me, at the very least, I want 1 marking period of intervention. Did y'all hear me? When I test the kid, I'm not convinced of a learning disability. I want 1 marking period of intervention before I consider special ed. Not 1 week, not 2 days, not tutoring by the classroom assistant, because the interventions are supposed to be carried out by who? Certified teachers. Certified teachers. Now, if you put your kid in special ed, they evaluate. That's normally about 60 days. Then after they evaluate, psychologist diagnosis, right? Specific learning disability. And we know special ed was created to do what? Resegregate black kids from white kids that couldn't use color, so now they use disability. That's why special ed comes in 1975 at the height of the what? Busing issue with the black suburbs. With the white suburbs. They didn't want black kids in the white suburb. So the federal government said, look, we know you don't want white, what's the suburb around here? White district around here? Liverpool? Liverpool, okay? So check it out. We gotta integrate. Because in 1954, the United States Supreme Court said that you can't use race as a factor in education, right? So the South said, we ain't integrated, we don't care what y'all said. So in 1963, Civil Rights Act came and they said, you know what, we're gonna force you to integrate or you're gonna start losing federal money. They said, damn, we might gotta integrate. But they still was slow. So then they said, we're gonna have to bus black kids to white suburbs because there ain't no white kids in the inner city to integrate with, so we gotta send them out to the suburb. White people went off. So the federal government said, what are we gonna do to get white schools in the suburbs to integrate with these black kids from the inner city? Give them 2 things. Tell them they can segregate them if they think that they can't learn, and then give them money for segregating. Did y'all hear what I just said? That's what special ed is. Segregate them if you don't think they can learn, and we're going to give you money for the segregation. Here's the crazy part though. I can't prove if he can't learn. Are y'all with me? I can evaluate that baby right there and give her every test I got. I can give her 55 tests. And guess what? At the end of the day, all I can do is make a what? Educated guess. A professional opinion about whether or not she got the learning disability. I can't give her a CAT scan. I can't give her an MRI. I can't show a brother take urine to rule in or rule out the learning disability. It is always and forever a what? Professional opinion. Kids are getting exploited and miseducated on a professional opinion. So now the child got an IEP, inferior education plan. And once you have the inferior education plan, you really get miseducated. Why? Because this is not based on achievement, this is based on progress. I'm going to explain this to you. Versus achievement. Let me illustrate what I'm talking about. What grade is the princess in? 4 years old, preschool? What grade you in, princess? Second grade, all right. Let's assume that they both in second grade for a moment. They're classmates, right? She's in regular ed. If she got an A on her report card, it's supposed to mean she mastered the curriculum up until that point. Are y'all with me? She in special ed. She got an A on her report card too. Do they mean the same thing? Hell no. Her A is based on achievement. Her A is based on what? Progress. In other words, she's in special ed. And she's in the second grade, but she's still doing kindergarten level work. But because she's making progress as her special ed teacher, I can give her an A on her report. The question: when you get the report card as the parent, is there a notice on the back of the report card that says these grades are not based on the achievement? This is simply based on progress. Did you ever see that on the back of a report card? Hell no. Do you know why? Because they don't want black parents to realize that special ed don't work. And what happens when you get the report card? You happy. You calling everybody. My baby made honor roll. She failed everything last year, now she got all A's and B's this year. No, she still don't know nothing. But they're grading her based on progress. And guess what happens? When her second grade classmates go to third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, are y'all with me? They on the seventh grade level. She's still getting A's with them. You know why? Because she's now on the fourth grade level. Still 3 grades behind. But I can only grade her on progress because somebody made a professional opinion that she had a disability. So when it's time to graduate from high school, guess what? She's graduating on time. She's walking across the stage with everybody else with the cap and gown. She still got A's and B's on her report card, but still can't do 12th grade math, 12th grade reading, or 12th grade writing. Because in special education, to grade children based on achievement can be considered as discrimination against their disability. Absolutely sickening. Which is why, if your child is in special ed, and you know they're in special ed because they ain't been taught, or they have the sloppy and lazy disability, because most black kids ain't got a specific learning disability. They got a sloppy and lazy as hell disability. Oh, y'all know what I'm talking about? When I test one of these babies, and they nasty, and I don't want to be here no more, how long is this going to take? I'm hungry, I don't like you. And I just want to shake the hell out of them so I can give them my test. Okay? They just sloppy and lazy. But the school likes that because they send them right to special ed incarceration. Okay? Now,
That little room way in the hallway where nobody go, or I used to run down there and point and say, oh, y'all stupid.
now, here's the thing though. Special education is not a place. Special education is a program. What am I talking about? If I say that baby got a learning disability and she needs special ed support, does she have to go into a class with other learning disabled kids? No, because special ed is not a place. It can be if you need a separate place. But you can stay in the regular class and get your special education help. So why do we see so many black special ed kids in a special ed class as opposed in the same regular class and just getting the help? Why? Because the teacher didn't refer them for testing so they can stay here. They referred them for testing to get them the hell out of here. Is everybody with me? So if you got a child with an IEP, stop having people make you think special ed is a place. You have an IEP, so you go to that class. You have an IEP, so you go to that class. You have an IEP, so you go to that class. You don't have to go to a class. You stay where you are, and your program gets implemented where you are. You see, in special ed, you got 3 levels of segregation. You have itinerant, part-time special ed, full-time special ed. Is everybody with me? Itinerant means what? Your child is only in special ed 20% of the week. They're with the regular kids the other 80. Part-time means what? About 50% of the week, they're with special kids. The other 50%, they in the regular class. And you know what full-time means, right? All day. But if a black kid is in special ed all day, then that means the school might be violating their rights. What am I talking about? Every special ed child in America has a right to be taught in the least restrictive environment. Restriction means segregation. So if that baby got a learning disability in reading, but she's also with special ed kids for math, and she's also with special ed kids for gym, and she's also with special ed kids for science, she's not being educated in the least restrictive environment. She's being educated in the most restrictive environment, which is a violation of this clause of special ed law. Are y'all with me? You only are supposed to be in special ed to the point necessary for you to learn. Once you are in special ed 1 minute longer than what is absolutely necessary for you to learn, the school is violating this restricted environment. Everybody got me? So just because they're in special ed don't mean it's the end of that child. How much time are they spending in special education? And guess what? If your child ain't been learning in special ed, you're gonna call an IEP meeting and you're gonna tell them, you know what? Syracuse Public Schools has miseducated my child, and you know what I want? I want y'all to pay for my child to go to an approved private school. White parents do it all the time. My son was in special ed for 2 years. He ain't learned nothing in 2 years. Guess what? Y'all can't teach him no more. Y'all gonna pay for him to go to an approved private school that you pick as the parent. That's special ed law. If the district is failing the special ed child, the district can pay for the special ed child to go to a private school. Y'all see that? Now, last thing, and I'm gonna hit my PowerPoint. When we talk about psychological problems, there's 5 approaches to dealing with psychological problems. 5 approaches. There is the behavioral approach. There is the medical approach. There is the psychodynamic approach. That's the Greek sign for psychology. There's the cognitive approach. Okay? You see what I'm missing here. Got behavior, medical, psychodynamic, cognitive, and the social approach. Hold on. Behavior, medical, psychodynamic, cognitive, and the social. You bring your child to me. She's crying all the time. You think she's depressed, right? I could look at the behavioral approach. Okay? She's crying because she don't know how to act. If we teach her how to act, she'll stop crying. Psychodynamic approach. Your child is crying because she got unresolved issues from her childhood that keep on coming up and causing her so much mental pain that leads to her crying all the time. Okay? Cognitive approach. Your child is crying because she doesn't know how to think. Every time something happens, she misinterprets that as being what? She's not sufficient. She's not good enough. She's not the equal of other people. Cognitive approach is looking at what? Thoughts. Your child is crying because she don't know how to get along with other people. Interaction. Your child is crying because of unresolved issues. Her daddy ain't there. Not his baby, I'm just saying. Daddy not home, she don't get to see her dad. Behavior, she don't know how to act. Medical. I left that one for last because that's the main approach that they use. The medical approach says what? The reason why that baby crying is because she got some chemical imbalances going on in her mind. Why do they like this approach so much? Because it automatically means you need what to solve the problem? Medicine. The problem right now is this. You could use any one of these to address the problems that our boys have in school. He can't sit still. You can teach him how. He fighting all the time. Teach him how to get along with other kids. He's always angry. See what's going on in his mind. Is it possible that maybe he suffered some kind of abuse or something early on in life and he needs some therapy? Why don't they consider those things? Because that takes time and compassion. You have to be willing to work with the child. Are y'all with me? The hell with that. We want to give him some chaos. Is everybody with me? So I want y'all to see that the model that's being used, that everybody got to be put on drugs, okay, is only one model. It's only one model. They use it because it equals profits. $50 billion a year on Wall Street. Okay? So that's that. You ready to start clicking for me, beloved?
I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a question, but you
Yeah, let's take a couple. I'm gonna take 5 and then we do
The
that.
5 stages, and you did 1 and 2, and I don't know if you did.
I'm sorry.
5.
Psycho, academic, war against black boys. Stage 1 is what?
Stage 1.
Miseducation.
Yes.
Y'all should know these. What's stage 2?
Psychotropic meds.
Psychotropic medication. What's stage 3?
Academic.
No, academic was here. What's stage 3? Incarceration. Stage 4? Psychological frustration and isolation. When they get to stage 4, that means what? They're hopeless and desperate. The brothers hanging out on the corner, this is where they at. The question is, why do we allow them to go through all 3 of these? Are y'all with me? Isolation. Stage 5, y'all know what that is, right? Murder. Extermination. Everybody in here got a black boy who they love and care about. This is your diagnostic criteria right here. You got a son at home? Where is he? You got a nephew? Where is he? You got a grandbaby godson? Where is he? Is he just being miseducated? Or is he already on the drugs? Because guess what? If the drugs don't work, you know what the logical next step is. See that? Or is he here? Has he already dropped out of school? Now he's frustrated and isolated?
Is he home on the road frustrated and isolated?
Exactly. Because that only leaves what? One more step. Once you get here, this is when the hopelessness and desperation kick in. The problem is you don't get there unless you've been through miseducation and medication. If you're in special ed and you're on drugs, you're being set up for failure. Any black boy in America who's in special ed and on drugs is being set up for an early exit from life. I don't care who he is or where he at. Is everybody clear on that? It's bad enough to have one. Just being on drugs is enough. Just being miseducated is enough. But I'm on drugs and I'm being miseducated. Where do I go from here? Nowhere but down. Down to the grave. Give me that first slide.
It said 5 questions.
Oh, 5 questions. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I don't really, what's the deal with SSI and how it's impacting?
Social Security?
I do work in schools and I see a lot of people, well, we're gonna get our extra money, but at the same time, you're labeling your child forever.
Right.
So how do you reason it or rationalize it?
Here's the problem with psychology and psychiatry. They are businesses. Stop treating them like sciences. Is everybody with me? I'm being asked to test kids not to help them, but to see if there's some hustle money in it. Right?
Yeah.
How does SSI get involved? Because if a child has a medical condition, and all psychiatric labels are medical because psychiatry is a branch of medicine, right? Then guess what? If that child is impaired in their ability to function in society as a result of that ADHD or conduct disorder, the parent qualifies for supplemental income through SSI.
I'm seeing kids whose parents are telling them to jump around a room so we can get money, and then this kid is labeled.
I'm gonna give you something worse.
Nobody unlabels them. It's forever.
Exactly.
And I can't stand
Exactly.
it, but the parents are encouraging the behavior and not realizing they're impacting their whole life.
Right.
So what do I do?
Well, two things. Number one is more of the district than it is the parent. But there is a sizable percentage of black parents who are advocating the label because they know that they can get the money. Here's the problem. You don't automatically get an SSI check because your child got a disability. I got kids who I put in special ed who don't get no money. You know why? Because they're not disabled or impaired in their ability to function. Are y'all with me? The only kids who guaranteed to get that SSI money, autistic, retarded, blind, deaf. Now, a lot of the ADHD kids get it, but not as much as they used to. Are y'all with me? So you're not guaranteed to get it. But like you said, parents will make the child act worse so they qualify. Let me give you an example. I had a kid at a charter school last year who was diagnosed as mentally retarded, who was not mentally retarded. I came in to do the reevaluation. 8th grade boy. I'm sitting down to test him. Guess what he's doing? He's deliberately getting the questions on the IQ test wrong, and I know he knows the answers. His IQ score came up so low that he would have to be diagnosed as severely and profoundly mentally retarded. He was as intelligent as anybody sitting here. Guess what happened? I knew he was lying, but I didn't have no ammunition to back it up. I had my professional observations because I know kids. I've been testing them for 12 years. I know kids. I know our babies. The special ed liaison said, guess what, Mr. Johnson? I said, what? She said, his mother told him to do that because she did SSI money. And guess what? The mentally retarded kids get some of the highest checks. Did y'all hear that? So she got her son going around acting retarded so they can keep on getting the money. The problem is everybody pimps the child. The psychiatrists get money, psychologists get money, the school get money, the mom get money, and the child get a life of misery and miseducation. And like you said, the labels never come off. Now here's the question. Can the label come off a special ed child? Yes! All you have to do is write a letter and say, I don't think my child no longer qualifies, I never did. And just like they put the label on, they can put the label off. Is it difficult to get the label off? Yes. Why? Because whenever I pull one of them out of special ed, the school lose that 10 grand. Are y'all with me? I've had principals come up to me and say, Mr. Johnson, I referred 50 kids for you to be evaluated this year. You tested 50 kids. You got paid for 50 evaluations, nigga. And out of 50 kids, you gave me 5. Man. Are y'all listening to me? I'm serious. How dare you? How dare you get paid for 50 evaluations and only give me 5 kids I can hustle off? And guess what? It was an Afrocentric charter school. I'm not lying. That's right. We love the dashikis. We love the jumping. And they just some white-ass capitalists like everybody else. That's right. That's right. So please be careful with your children. I don't care if they black or white. You better study the school. Don't get hooked up. Like I told y'all the other night, people can talk about, well, their test scores are high. Because they handpicking their kids. My test scores would be high if I handpicked the kids too. Stop falling for that nonsense. You ain't got the same kids in this school this year you had when you opened up. You kicked all them out. You brought in kids off your waiting list who had our test scores. Because you went on SchoolNet and saw everybody's scores. That's why when I see these articles, so-and-so, he's on the front of the Time News where he took these poor black kids in 4 years. Show me a picture of the class 4 years ago. And show me a picture of the kids now. Half of them ain't there no more. Charter schools are notorious for kicking out low-achieving kids and bringing in high-achieving kids. Did y'all know that? That's right. This son got a behavior problem and he got low test scores? Hell no! He out of here. Now, if he had a behavior problem and he got high test scores, they'll keep him. They'll keep high-performing African-American boy. Ain't too many of them floating around. Everybody want to be an athlete or an entertainer, which I can't stand. I'm getting sick and tired of going to classrooms and asking the black boys what they want to be, and everybody want to be an athlete or entertainer. That's our problem. Why aren't we exposing them to other careers? You want to be a Philadelphia Eagle, but you don't want to own the Philadelphia Eagles. You want to wear Nike sneakers, but you don't want to own Nike sneakers. See that? You want to be a Chicago Bull, but you don't want to own the Chicago Bulls. We got to get back to ownership, black people. There's 2 things that we don't have in our community that's killing us. Industry. Talked about this last night. And institutions. Are y'all with me? The information that we have in the black community is powerful, right? But when the last time you was invited to a lecture that was totally about building industries and building institutions? You need the institutions to do what? Protect and preserve.
I was going to say, would you consider churches as an
Certainly. Churches are an institution. The problem is most of them don't work in our best interest. If the churches worked in our best interest, 95% of our problems would be solved. How much money black people put in the church every Sunday? $3 million in America. $3 million every Sunday, y'all.
billion.
You see that? And you get nothing from it. You see? But churches, all religious institutions, not just Christianity, I don't put nobody in a box, they're all together. This is what they function on. Escapism. The same thing a drug addict functions on. Escapism. I just want to get high and escape for a moment. But when I leave service at 3 o'clock, I'm going right back to the same political conditions that was here at 8 o'clock when I got here. Okay, somebody on drugs, they get high for an hour, guess what? They right back where they landed. How do you know whether or not something is an escapism or whether it's real progressive? How do you know? Because if it's progressive, it's going to take you from where you are and get you towards where you need to be. If it's escapism, it puts you on an emotional high and drops you off where? Right where it picks you up. All you got to do is look at any church, any social institution you got to Syracuse, and just look and say, how long has it been in? 50 years, 30 years, 20 years? Okay, has any progress been realized in this place for any group of people? Okay? And if it ain't been, they function on escapism. It's really just that simple. Institutions for the people and industry so you can finance it. Industry is your money. Where's our factories? Where's our airlines? Where's our ships? You see that? Where's our distribution company? You know the biggest problem black people got is what? Lack of a distribution company. If we want to get serious, we need to talk about this tonight. What we need is a conglomerate of buses, cars, vans, ships, airplanes who can do what? This sister got a certain type of cocoa butter she wants to sell. We're going to do what with that cocoa butter? See to it that every black person on the face of the earth can buy it if they want to at a reasonable price. We don't have a distribution network. Do you know how powerful it would be for us to go to anybody? Go to Brother Bob and say, Bob, you got DVDs? Guess what? We got distribution, brother. We're going to get your DVD everywhere in the world. You go to China and everybody. You need distribution. Black people ain't got no distribution. We got to keep going to who? The Europeans. Can you sell my music? Can you sell my sneakers? Can you sell my clothes? Can you sell my hair care products? Can you sell my African drums? Sure. I'm going to keep 85% and you keep 15%. And that's why the average black musician gets 50 cents off of a CD. Last question. We good? Yeah. All right. Break to the first slide.
You got to believe in yourself and all you do.